Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. I haven't made a video in a long time because mental health but also physical health. I've been very unwell recently in the months and I felt like I did not have a voice because I've been sick, or I didn't have the energy to sit down and film anything or edit anything. So it's been a long time, I know. I miss making videos, I miss making um, book rants and everything, and I hope that I can slowly get back into it. I hope you guys have missed my videos as much as I have missed making them, and I hope that this one will be as interesting as the other ones have. Considering I haven't done a video in a long time, I thought we could do a check-in in how my reading goals and progress is going so far, because technically we're in the first quarter of the year 2023, and I just wanted to make like a check-in because I did make a video in the beginning of the year of 23 books I want to have read 2023, and I wanted to talk about how that's going and how my overall reading is going so far. So far, I think that my reading has been very slow, mostly because I've been trying to read slower. I don't want to rush myself through a book. I want to immerse myself more into books. That was like one of the goals that I really wanted to do. So I haven't read as much this year as I usually do, which I'm completely fine with because that was one of my goals. I didn't want to. I also have tried to pick those really thick books out that I've been wanting to read for a very, very long time. But I have felt that I don't have time for that because if I read that, it will take me this many days and I will not finish my reading goals of this many books in a month or whatever I had. So before I was very like looking into numbers and like looking at number of pages that I could manage while working full-time jobs. So now that I've been reading more thicker books and immersing myself into them more, it's kind of like it makes sense that I'm reading less books than I usually do. So I haven't read as much that I usually do, which is, you know, I don't like looking at the numbers because the numbers makes me feel like, you know, oh my god, I have not done as much as I have the rest of the years. Or the years before this, because if I look at the numbers, I feel like I'm very much behind. But at the same time, I feel like when I'm thinking about my reading progress and what I have been able to read, I feel like I have accomplished just as much and I've been enjoying my reading just as much as the other years. So sometimes I feel like, you know, statistics and numbers are not the way to go sometimes. But, you know, if you look at them, you will most likely feel like you are behind because that's how I feel like. But on Goodreads, I set a very low number of books I wanted to have read this year. I said that I wanted to read 150 books, which I most likely will. For you guys who are new here and might not know, I have a tendency of reading a lot. Mostly because I'm also a librarian in real life, so I read a lot for work, but I also read a lot for myself. The other years I usually read between 200 and 300, and one year I did 400, and I could have pushed it to 500 if I wanted to. But then, you know, you always have to like balance the quality and quantity, because I felt like I didn't get much quality because it was very much like I need something I can read fast, not something I can enjoy in the moment. So recently I am enjoying my books at the moment. If I'm looking at my reading challenge on Goodreads, I am 9 books ahead of my schedule, and I have finished 44 books so far this year, which is a really, really big number. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my god, I haven't read anything and I'm so much behind, because I know for a fact that if you look at my reading and you compare it to other people's reading, I read a lot even when I don't read a lot. So I'm not comparing myself to anyone else, and you as a reader should never do the same either. I'm comparing myself to myself, and if I'm comparing my numbers to my numbers from the previous years, I'm not reading as much now. But if we look at the moral of the story, I still feel like I am much happier in my reading now than I was before. I feel like I get more enjoyment out of my books. I feel like I'm picking books I want to read and not just books that I feel like, oh, this can be a quick read, or this is popular on TikTok, or whatever it could be. I'm just picking books after my own taste and my own likeness right now. So I'm really, really happy about that. When it comes to the 23 books to read 2023, I have read 4 of the books on the list. I calculated that every quarter I should probably read 5.75 books each time, and I haven't done that, which I'm not too worried about, because I did say these are 23 books I would love to finish, but if I don't feel like reading them and I don't feel like picking them up, I will not behead myself over it. It will be fine. I will just pick books that I feel like reading. The books on this list are just like books that I own in my physical TBR that I have had for a long time and I really, really want to finish at some point. That's why I have those. So it's more like guidelines of things that I want to have accomplished. But I will not be unhappy if I do not finish the list. But I still feel like 4 out of 23 in a quarter is very good. I actually forgot about this list, which is probably the main reason why I haven't picked books up from the list. But when I look at the books that's on the list, I just feel like, yeah, I will most likely read this in the end of the year, because these are books that I actually feel a big want to read very soon. The books that I have read, I will not talk more on in specific, more than I will mention what books it is, because I am working on analytical book videos on each of them, so I will not speak in depth of them, but I'm going to disclosure what books it is and what I thought of them a little bit. If you missed this this video, I will link it both in the description but also up in the corner if you want to go and look what books on the list it was, because I'm not going to talk about all the 23 books on the list, only the books that I have read during this first quarter. The first one I have is The Lord of the Rings. The idea was to only read the first of The Lord of the Rings. I think it's The Fellowship of the Rings, no? But I actually managed to... I have read all 3, the trilogy, and right now I'm actually working on The Hobbit. I have 3 chapters left on The Hobbit, so I'm also soon done with that. I love the way Tolkien is writing, and I have realized, because I've been very scared of The Lord of the Rings, because I read the first book when I was 13 or something, and this was the time when I was heavily dyslexic. I still am, but at that time it was very heavy on me, and I had a hard time with my dyslexia at that time. And his writing was very complex for me, and right when I'm reading it now, I have evolved as a reader, you can almost say, because now I feel like it is extremely beautiful, and I love all the descriptions, and I love descriptive reading and writing, so Tolkien does that wonderfully. I'm not a big fantasy person per se, so I can't be like, you know, this is the best. But I like how it's written, so past that I still gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Truly enjoyed it. I really did. The second book that I have read is Anna Karenina. I read Anna Karenina together with a friend of mine. We did a buddy reading, so we did like one part at a time and then we discussed it, which I think was an amazing thing to do. Anna Karenina is a story with so many things said to it. I feel like, you know, you can't read it in one go. I think that you have to like stop and think and discuss it to fully submerge yourself into what it is you're reading and how all the characters are thinking. I was in the beginning I had a hard time getting into it because there was a lot of names and a lot of people had the same name, very Russian similar names. But as soon as I got into it and I knew who was who and how they were related to each other, I felt like Anna Karenina is such a good book. I loved it. And it's probably one of the best books I read this year. I loved it a lot, which is a lot because I hated every character in the book. I hated them with a great passion, and I hated what Tolstoy made them. And to hate all the characters but still loving the book and the story, it's very different for me. Because usually you love the characters and you want them to succeed and you want them to have the best, and you're maybe like, you know, you feel like you can see yourself in the characters. But here it was just, I hated everything they did. I hated all the decisions they decided to do. I hated how they interacted with each other because I was like, oh, just get on with it. But then at the same time, they had such a special place in my heart because they felt so real and so human at the same time. So, Anna Karenina, Tolstoy. I realized that I love Tolstoy a lot. I didn't know I did, but now I have told myself that I need to read more Tolstoy books because apparently I love Tolstoy. The third book that I read on my list is the Iliad. The Iliad is I had a hard time getting through the Iliad. I felt like the Iliad was just a mush of rambling on both he who was father to him, who was son to blah blah blah, who then had a connection to him, who then, you know, it was basically the family trees. And it was also like, it wasn't enough to say it once. You had to like say it every time you introduced the same character again and again. You get the entire family tree that could sometimes be pages long, which made me zone out, and then I couldn't come back into it. So I felt like a lot fell between the lines when I read the Iliad. At the beginning, I thought it was maybe because I read it in very old English. So I decided to reading in a more modern English with another translator. It was easier, but then I decided that why should I read it in English? Because, you know, the original is not English. The original will be in Greek and Latin, and I was like, then I can just read it in Swedish, which is my first language. Or modern language. So I thought I will read it in Swedish. So I read half the book in Swedish, and I understood so much more when I read it in Swedish, and the Swedish translation was really, really good compared to the English ones that I read. The story itself in the Iliad I really like. How it was told and how it was read I did not really like. It was not my cup of tea. I can understand why people like it. I can understand that people will argue that it's an important piece of historical literature, which it is. But for my entertainment and enjoyment, I did not like the Iliad. I still want to read the Odyssey. I feel like everyone tells me that the Odyssey is a lot better than the Iliad, and that the Iliad is just a very long and boring prologue for the Odyssey. So at one time, maybe I will read it. Right now, I'm kind of like scared to get into it because of the Iliad, but time will tell when I pick the Odyssey up then. The fourth and the last book I read was, I wrote on my list that I wanted to read something from Emile Zola, which is a French author. After my grandfather passed away a few years ago, I got some of his books in his collection, which was Emile Zola because he really liked him. I think I have 3 books of Emile Zola, and I decided to read The Lady's Paradise. It was the worst book I have ever read, and I fully hated it. I hated the story. I hated the theme of the story. I hated like the characters. I hated what it was trying to convey or tell us with the story. And I gave it really bad review, I think, and a really bad grade. But now when I've been thinking about it, and it gone a few months, because I read it in January, so it's been a few months now since I read it, and I think back on it, like, did I really hate it that much, or was it justified? Was I just in a bad mood? Because when I think about it, like, when I'm trying to analyze it now, and I'm like, I'm sitting down and trying to analyze it, what I read, what it could mean, what the different themes means, like, I'm starting to see a pattern where I understand the book a little bit more, and I understand where it's coming from, like when it was written and why it was written. So, like, from that perspective, I feel like I appreciate the theme of the book, and I appreciate what it was trying to do, but I don't think I like the execution of the book, and I definitely did not like reading the book, obviously, because I was so upset when I read it, and I really just wanted it to be gone, because it was like a dry brick to eat, I just didn't like it. So then again, it's like, I can understand the purpose of the book. I can understand why it's a classic. I can understand why people appreciate the books. But I did not feel the entertainment myself when I read the book. Which is fine. You don't have to like all the classics. Just because it's a classic, you don't have to like them. You can appreciate them for what they are, but you don't have to be like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've read in my entire life. Because, it doesn't have to be true. Which I feel like is the biggest joy of books, that we are so different and we like different things, and it's just, book can bring so much joy, I saw a series recently about a book company when they talked about books, and they were like, books cannot change lives and they can't make lives better, but they can bring a little bit of sunlight and warmth to your life. And I feel like that's true and beautiful in a way. I do still want to argue that a book can change your life, because it can change your point of view of life, or it can make you thinking a different way, which can change the way you are living. But I don't know. I like that saying anyway, because some books just give that extra sunlight in your life, and it can make a really bad day a lot better for sometimes. But yeah, that's how my quarter have been looking this past months recently. Can't say I have done like a lot of reading, and it's been just, more on the chill side to be me, but I've been also enjoying my time with my books, which is amazing. But yeah, more analytical videos are to come. I think I have 11 or something that I have written in the scripts. I just need to film them and edit them. They shall be pumped out to you all soon. So how is your reading goals going for you? Please comment below. I would love to know. Have you read anything really good recently? Maybe tell me about your favorite books that you have read so far this quarter. That's always fun to hear. Mine would obviously be Anna Karenina so far. It's the one that's on my mind that I can't stop thinking about. I think I think about it like every day so far. Such a beautiful book. Definitely a book I want to reread sometime in the future. So maybe, you know, when I'm old and have grey hair, I will sit there and read Anna Karenina yet again. But as always, thank you for listening to my book rambles, and I hope that it have been fun for you guys, and I hope to be able to do more book related stuff soon. And much love to you all. Bye. Mwah.